What's going on, people? It's Ricardo Francis, aka Ricardo Lifting here. Today I'm going to talk about the topic of fitness, how to get fit essentially, and just some top tips on how to achieve it. So firstly, we kind of have to define what is it? What does fitness mean? What does it mean to be fit? So definition is, I think I Googled this. Google definition is to be in good health, especially through performing exercise, regular exercise. So that kind of sums up what it is, to be in good health. Most times you need some form of cardiovascular exercise to be in good health. And then obviously going back to exercise, or doing some form of exercise. That's why they say to keep fit, you exercise, and everyone's definition or everyone's idea of fitness is going to be slightly different. So whether you want to run a 10k, whether you want to swim, I don't know, I don't swim, so who knows the lengths, or whether you just want to walk up the stairs without being out of breath. Every definition of fitness has some form of cardiovascular component to it. That's kind of one thing you have to look at, how to increase your cardiovascular fitness. If I give you my definitions and what it means to me to be fit, it might give you a bit of insight of how to scale it, so kind of the first point of fitness for me is that I need to be able to do my job, which is be a gym manager, where I teach classes. I also PT, so can demonstrate exercises and be able to train myself without being taxed cardiovascularly, I guess. Yo, before you get on to me, I had to Google it and it is a legit word. Without being taxed too much through my cardiovascular system, so, I want to be able to teach a class without being out of breath. I want to be able to, do my calisthenics and do my weight training without my cardio being the reason why I can't do a certain amount of reps or I can't perform at my best. I want that to be the element that is strong enough for me to do all of that and have limited effect on my actual performance. So that's kind of number one. As I said, everyone's definition of fitness pretty much has some form of cardiovascular element to it. Number two, and this is something that's important to me, and I think it should be important to everybody, but not a lot of people think about it, is to be able to move well enough to perform exercises that I want to do. So in my own training, I said calisthenics, weight training, etc., and be able to demonstrate these exercises without having any issues. So for instance, said I PT, I teach classes. Can I perform the exercise in the front and it be unflawed? That's my main issue. Like, I don't want to say perform a bodyweight squat and I can't squat to depth and I'm expecting everybody else to squat to depth. That doesn't make any sense. So for me, I have to be able to move well. Now, the reason I say move well, and this is kind of the important part of it, when it comes to moving well, that's what we class as mobility. To be able to move in a manner that limits the chance or risk of injury. I think that's the key to it. So I want to be able to do all of that and without injuring myself. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. They don't think about moving well, especially when you look at bodybuilding in itself, or that style of training, weight training, to lift heavier, to be bigger. A lot of people don't think about the movement. So they end up hurting themselves, they end up injuring their joints, etc. And it's because they're not thinking about movement. And at the end of the day, movement actually defines how well you're able to perform these exercises without injuring yourself. So I've actually been reading a book, this one right here, The Squat Bible by Dr. Horschig. I'm going to put the description down below. He's actually the guy who does the Squat University stuff, so on Instagram and on YouTube. And it kind of has an insight to to what I'm talking about and how I've based a lot of my training, but now it's kind of giving me a laser focus on it. So he works with and trains loads of different athletes, and a lot of them come with injuries, with problems, and the biggest thing is that when he looks at what the cause of injury is, or let's say these players get injured, they come to him, these athletes get injured, they come to him, and it's like, I find that I'm getting pain when I do X, Y, and Z. I normally rest it, go back to it, and I get pain again. And it's just a cycle. And he always looks back at their movements. Okay, so it says, can you perform this exercise, that exercise, that exercise? Most times it's a bodyweight squat. That's pretty much number one. Others will be a little bit more technical for the sport, but it always comes down to the bodyweight squat. Can you do a full depth bodyweight squat without problems? A majority, like I'll say 99% of the time, they couldn't do it before the injury and therefore end up being injured. Now, I'm not saying you have to squat to be uninjured, but what I am saying is that if you can't do a bodyweight squat, why are you racking weight on the bar to squat? You know, there's certain movements that you do in sport, in life, that kind of replicate all like different aspects of the squat. So why not master the squat first? You know, it's about mastering movement. You know, the squat is just one exercise, but so many different muscles and so many different joints moving in that one particular movement. So most times you need stability from your feet, you need mobility from your ankles, you need stability from your knees, you need mobility from the hips, you need stability from the core and your lumbar spine, and you need mobility in your thoracic spine, your upper body, your upper portion. And the book goes into detail about that and everything, how to master a squat. But the reality is a lot of people can't do this properly. And that's kind of why I always focus with my clients and with myself to mastering the basics first. Before we do anything else, master the basics, because at the end of the day, I don't want people to be exercising to get fit and then injure themselves. That kind of sets you back. Or in the process of getting fit, your knee starts hurting, your hips start hurting, your back starts hurting. At the end of the day, we don't need to live with that. The longer we can stay mobile, the longer we can keep fit, you know. And simple as, you know, as you get older, most people are like, oh, I can't do this anymore because I'm getting old. Most times it's not that. It's because you've become immobile and therefore your body has conformed to what you do. So for instance, if you just sit down all day, I've seen a lot of people as they get older, they're just sitting down watching TV all the time. Eventually that's all you can do. All you can do is sit down. You can't do anything else. You know, you can't control your weight down. You throw yourself into a chair. That's what majority of people do. So it's about controlling all elements. Yes, about really mastering the basics to be able to perform the exercise that you want to do. You know, even if you want to run, a squat actually benefits that, because you are now creating good movement patterns to allow you to run safely. You know, people don't think about that. They just think, okay, let me just get up and run. Well, what about if when you run, your knees caving in, your foot's pronating? Eventually that's going to cause problems. If you teach your body to move in a safe manner, in an engaging manner, where you engage in those muscles without putting a toll onto the joints, then it's a safe movement, and then you can do it for longer. But if you're doing it in a bad manner, if you're doing it in a manner that kind of compromises your joints, or compromises even your muscles to injury, you'll do it for a certain amount of time, then you injure yourself. Then you end up resting, probably foam roll, you probably ice it or massage it or have a hot bath. It feels better, you go and do it again, same problem. You haven't actually fixed the problem. So it's all about mastering the basics. And that's why one of mine is always move well. So when it comes to fitness, always two major elements that are super important. One, everyone's quite aware of, which is some form of cardiovascular element. As I said, whether your definition of fitness is to walk upstairs without being out of breath, whether it's to run and play with your kids without being out of breath or being able to catch up with them, or whether it's to run a marathon, you know, it's always got some form of cardiovascular element to it. And for me, it's also important to be able to move well enough to perform these exercises without injuring yourself. That's when I feel truly fit. When it comes to improving these two elements, you have to, I said, the second one, I've pretty much gone through it. It is mastering the basics, mastering the very basics without weight, without anything. Just master the basics. And once you've mastered it, joint by joint, muscle by muscle, limb by limb, you've mastered the basics, then move on to whatever you're trying to improve. And then the second element, to improve, you need to constantly increase something, you know, whether it's you can initially run 1K and increase into 1.5K because eventually you want to run a marathon. Whether it's you're doing some form of weightlifting, you want to increase your bench press, for instance, you go from 60 kg, you want to work yourself up by small increments. Understand it's small, you know, small wins take you far. Don't think, oh, okay, I want to get up to 100 kg, I can bench 60 kg, next I'm going to go up to 70. No. Even if it's 62, that's an increase. Literally small increments and just constant at it. You're better off having small increments, so small that you shouldn't even notice it when you go to lift it. Or I said, if you're running, the increment and increase in what you do is so small they shouldn't even notice. You should just pretend that that's your normal routine and you're just going for it. So that's kind of how you want to improve. A lot of it is there. A lot of it is in your mind, you know. If you tell yourself it's going to be harder, it will be harder. So what you have to tell yourself is that you're doing the same thing that you always do, even though you've made that small increment. You have to push past when it gets hard. Tell yourself, no, this is easy. I do it to myself all the time. Like, I will shout at myself in the gym. Trust me, I'm a grunter, I'm a shouter. I shout at myself to say, no, this should be easy. This is easy. I'm going to do it. I'm going to lift it, regardless. And that's kind of the mentality you have to have just to improve on anything. You just have to say, you know what? It's easy. I'm only doing a little bit. So if you set like your increase too far, you will fail. Either by some chance you might actually succeed, but most times you will fail because you're setting yourself up for failure. You're already telling yourself it's hard, it's far from what I do. So just make small increments, small increases, small improvements, and eventually you'll get to your goal and you'll be the definition of fitness that you've set for yourself. So just to summarize, said fitness essentially is to be healthy, especially due to exercise. So we all know to be fit, you need to exercise. Improve cardiovascular endurance, have some form of cardio component to increase, even if it's, because I hate cardio myself, I hate slow, steady state cardio. Hate it with passion, if you know me. So even if it's, I'm gonna do my calisthenics training or my weightlifting training to hit cardiovascular ranges within my heart rate, that's how I'm going to increase it. But as long as there's some form of cardiovascular element to it, make sure you're doing that to improve your fitness levels. So important to me, especially, but I think it's important to everyone, to be able to move well. Master the basics and you'll be able to move well. Once you can move well, then perform your exercises, then start to try to increase and improve on what you're doing. But always remember to go back to moving well. If by any chance you increase, you improve, whatever it is, and it stops you from moving well, then you need to reconsider how you're training. You need to reconsider what you're doing and how important it is to you, because eventually if you keep going in that direction, you will injure yourself. And finally, just make those small increments, make those small changes and small improvements, because eventually they will add up. understand you're in it for the long run. You're not in it to get quick results overnight. Most people do, but that's how you fail. You either don't reach your top target, you don't reach your goal, or you injure yourself in the process because you're pushing yourself too far too soon. So just make small improvements day by day, and trust me, you'll get to your goal. So I hope that's helped. Make sure you click that like button down below, hit subscribe, and share this with all your friends. Anyway, that's me. I'm out. Peace.